Yo guys, it's Greenhopes. Still up at 5 minutes past 3 in the morning. It's not been a good last couple of days with my auto blueberry getting the bud rot on top of the buds. So it's like I worked out that was due to the carbon filter, and that's why I bought a new carbon filter. I think the carbon filter was not working for at least a week. I think the air was getting a little stale in the room. Plus my last fan, my previous fan that I used to blow air around the room has broke. I've only just ordered another fan, and that's obviously on the way now. So we'll be updating my grow room with a new fan. Also a new carbon filter, which is the 6-inch carbon filter, which I used a 5-inch last time, and a 5-inch air intake, and now we're going to be using the 6-inch carbon filter by 600mm, and we're going to be using a 6-inch intake fan. And obviously in a couple of days guys I'll get all of these products together and I'll do a video on how to set the carbon filter up and how to install it in your grow room. I think this will be good for the channel. I think this will be good for you guys or anyone that just doesn't want to know or might want to know. The majority of you guys probably already know that watch my channel how to set up a carbon filter, but you never know. Got them new beginners that might want this information. Obviously guys, I'm pro at using the Flora Trio. It's just like, I've used the Flora Trio for like 3 years now from General Hydroponics, so I'm basically a pro at using this food. It's just like, there's nothing I don't know about this food here. We have the Flora Micro here guys, from General Hydroponics. You always add this one first, always add that one first, always. Then guys, you'll use the bloom, the Flora Bloom, and then you use the grow. So it's in this order, preferably guys. That's how you want to be mixing it. It's pretty simple to use. There's nothing really difficult to the thing. It's easy for beginners to use. Very easy. It's also, you could probably, guys, you could do a whole grow using just this food here from weed. 100%. It's like you wouldn't need any additives from it at all. It's like I have used this food before in the very beginning, before I didn't know very much about growing. I did use this food, and I've used this food on its own. I've not added any additives into it whatsoever, and I have had successful grows using just these 3 bottles here. And so that's not including any additives or any finishing products or any flushing products, any cleaning products. Nothing else has been added to the grow, just these 3 here. Because we're using them, I'm using tablespoons here guys per gallon. It's pretty simple to use. It's not difficult food to use. It's really easy. It does cost. They cost about £10 a bottle. It's probably going to cost you about 30 quid to get all 3 bottles. So it's normally you just buy them all 3 together. You can buy them separate. It's eBay or Amazon. Stock these. Great products to use. You can also, guys, if you want to use some additives, you can use some Epsom salt, which you can mix the Epsom salt into your food also. Epsom salt can also be used as a foliage spray. Use a foliage spray, you put it in a spray bottle and you spray it on top of your plants. You've got yellow leaves, or you've got leaves that maybe have a bit of nutrient burn. It brings the green back into your leaves. You use it as a foliage spray and you can spray it on your plants. Because obviously the food is pretty simple to use. There's nothing really serious to it. It's if you were doing vegetation, then you would use two tablespoons of the micro. You would use only 1 tablespoon of the bloom. Then you would use 3 tablespoons of the grow, and that's literally all you need. You would pH the water to 6.8, pH the food to 6.8. Then obviously the pH will need adjusted with the pH up and down if you're going to add anything else to the mix, any additives. Then obviously it's going to knock the pH down a little bit more, so therefore you might have to put a little bit more pH up in to adjust the pH to get the pH back up to 6.8. And then you just want to water it to your plants at pH 6.8. And that's really the easiest way for me to explain to you guys. It's just like, if you stick to pH 6.8, it's like you really can't go wrong with a grow, really, to be honest with you. It's like at 6.8, I've never had any problems with any of the grows that I've ever done. Obviously you might want to start to adjust the pH and play with the pH a little bit in late flower, which this always benefits the flowers. This always benefits your plants in late flower, is by adjusting the pH right at the very end. It's not a good idea to keep your pH at 6.8 for the entire grow. This isn't something I do, this isn't something I've learned recently, that to not use 6.8 pH through the entire grow, because the plants uptake nutrients at different pH levels later on in their life. So you don't want to be feeding them 6.8 food through their entire life, because they take different parts out of the food, different benefits from the food, and there's different substances in here that the plants can only uptake at 6.7 or 6.9 pH. So therefore you have to adjust the pH towards the end of flower. So the last 3 or 4 weeks, that's when I start to play around with the pH, and I will adjust the pH a little bit on this food here. So up the whole entire grow on vegetation and the start of flower, I'll be using a pH of 6.8, but then as you get towards near the end, I start adjusting the pH. I will adjust the pH to maybe 6.6, 6.7, and mix it up on every feed I do, I'll give them a slightly different pH, everything in between 6.5 and 7, maybe even 7.1 sometimes. Just like you don't want to use the pH of 6.8 through the entire grow. Obviously the plants are going to take other bits of goodness out of here and anything else that's a benefit to the plant. They can't always get access to that nutrients, the goodness that's in there at a pH of 6.8. So that's why you have to adjust the pH in between 6.5 and maybe 7.1. Because the plants obviously uptake the nutrients at different pHs, guys. So there's some useful information for you. Hopefully that'll help you out in the future. So we have some other products here, guys, that I use. I'm going to run through these as also. So we have the finish here, and I use the advanced finish on every flush that I do. There isn't a time that I don't use this. I use this all the time. I used to buy the 250ml bottles. They cost you 13, 14 quid, which is just a really small bottle, and you were just kind of like getting robbed, really. So I've gone out and bought the 1 litre bottle, which I managed to get a deal on this for about 22 quid. I thought that was quite a bargain for a litre. So I use this on every flush that I do. So it's the first week of flush, I always use this, always. The second week I'll use just water that's been left out for 24 hours. So I don't normally pH the water, it's just the water here comes out about 7.3. And after I left it for 24 hours it's about 7.1. So I don't even really bother pHing that when I'm on the flush. So some people, depending on what area you're in the United Kingdom, depending on where you are, the pH might be different a little bit different. Because obviously down south people have pH of about 6.3, where up here we're pushing like 7.3, 7.4. So on an odd occasion it comes out at 7.6, and I might need to use a little bit of pH down, but otherwise I don't use that, because it's just not needed around here. Up north here, guys, up north. So it's just not needed around here. And that's obviously another one of the products that I use to do the grow. Is class that as an additive, guys. That's basically an additive. It's pH balanced, so it's pH about 6.8, 6.8, 6.9. It's pretty close to pH balance, so it doesn't affect the water, it doesn't change the pH, doesn't fluctuate and mess with the pH when you add it to the water. It's on the flush. And that's obviously a useful product, guys, that I use. Also, it's very good for enhancing the colours. It does help with the colours at the end of flower. If you're looking for your purples, things like that, it's a big bonus to that. Helps induce the colours in your plants at the end of flower. So here, guys, we have the pH up. This is a brand new bottle. This is an unopened bottle. Just bought this the other day because I was running out of pH up. Yeah, I seem to use pH up more than I use pH down. So, and I regularly have to buy pH up all the time as a single bottle. As I've had my pH down for like about 4 years and I've still got half a bottle left. As obviously pH down is more useful in hydroponics, where pH up is more needed for soil or cocoa. It's just like you normally put your food in the bucket, it reduces the pH to about 6.8, so therefore you need pH up. Now this here, you need to get a measuring cup, you add a little bit of water that's been left out for 24 hours, you put a couple of drops of this pH up in there, and then you'll be mixing a little bit of that in with your food. You have to keep checking the pH. So you use the pH wand, use this pH wand, then you'll be using this, and you'll be checking that. You'll drop a little bit of this liquid. You have to dilute it. You can't put it in like that. It'll literally could cause problems to the food. You'll have to put a little bit of this in a syringe, put it in the bottom of here, like 1 ml of it, and then you mix it with some water. And you add it to your food bucket, and then you use your pH wand, and you mix it with your pH wand. You check the pH. So this one here, without even putting anything, is reading 6.3. You know, that's the normal. That's the reading I get normally when I've got the food. I've got all the food in my bucket, and then I'd have to use the pH up, and take the pH up to 6.8. And obviously, guys, that's pretty much safe to feed your plants. Like with this food here, Flora Trio, you can't really overdose your plants with that. It's just like, even if you make a little bit of a mistake here and there, it's like this. It's not really going to cause too much of a problem when you're using that food. And that's why I like to use the Flora Trio, because consistency, guys, when you really do know how to use it, you can always get consistent product every time, a consistent result, and that's what I'm looking for. It's just like, that's why I like to use the Flora Trio. So we have the pH down here. It's a well-used bottle. This bottle's like maybe 3 years old now, and it's still got a little bit more than half of it in. I've never had to buy another pH down since I bought one 4 years ago, but this one, the pH up, I've replaced like maybe 15 times since I started. So I broke my glass. I dropped that in my hydroponics bucket about a month ago, and it broke. Cost a £5 to buy the measuring cup. Obviously, I never fill it to the top, so I'm not going to be buying one right now. I'm just going to use that. Another product here, guys. This is molasses here, raw molasses. Really, you can use it through the whole grow, but I don't like to use it through the whole grow. And you like to use it 2 weeks. Go through transition. I'll do 2 weeks of the transition, and after the 3rd week, that's when I'll start introducing molasses to the mix. And you will just mix your food like normal. You won't be putting the flawless finishing, obviously. You'll be using your pH up and down, the Flora Trio, and you won't be using that. And then you'll be adding molasses to the mix of food, and then you'll just be doing the same again, pHing it to 6.8 using the pH up or down. And it's as simple as that, really. 6.8. That's good enough, guys. You can water that to your marijuana plants. You shouldn't get any issues or deficiencies or problems. It says molasses is good for creating THC on your plants. It helps with the frostiness with the THC. It also helps the flowers. Get bigger flowers from molasses. Also get denser flowers, guys. Denser. Obviously, amino acids, sugars are vital for cannabis plants. You know, I heard a few stories online before about people using a can of Coke and adding that, but obviously, guys, that's just a bit of a stupid idea, really, isn't it? Adding a can of Coke, it's like you want to be using the proper stuff, guys. This is it, guys. This is the best you can get. You can't get any better than that, guys. So if you're going to get anything else other than this, it's like you're going to get something that's not going to work as good as raw sugarcane. It's like, this is the best stuff, guys. So if you want good, consistent results, you need to use molasses. I said, a lot of people do 2 feeds in a week. So any more than 2 feeds in a week, guys, that's not good for the plants. So you think that this gives your plants THC, and that might benefit your plants in some way. So people give it more molasses thinking that it's going to extra benefit the plants. It doesn't, guys. So I can't stress enough about this one. It doesn't benefit the plant if you overdo it on sugar. It just doesn't benefit it at all. It'll just yellow up, you'll get stump growth, it'll stop growing. This is what happens when you overdo it with sugar. Can't know how many times I've told my friends about this who do their own grows as well, and still they overfeed it with molasses and then completely ruin the entire grow. It's like, that's just, you know, it's just something, guys, that just like you can't be messing up. If you're gonna be using molasses, it's like you can't mess that up. It's like, that's a really important part of the whole thing. If you mess that up, guys, you mess the whole crop up if you mess that up. And that is, I can't stress, that is really, really important for the flower period. It's very important. It's like, you use 1 tablespoon of this, guys, per gallon. And I'm currently only using, 3rd week in, I use 1 tablespoon of molasses per 1 gallon. I also mixed it with